Right, well, there are new figures suggesting long NHS waiting times could be pushing people into paying thousands for private treatment. Now, the figures from the Private Healthcare Information Network, over 250,000 people paid for private healthcare in the last 3 months of the last year, a rise of almost 40%. And to give you an example of the cost, a common operation like a hip or knee replacement, which Christina's just had, she had a knee replacement, which would set you back around about £15,000. Experts claim that the figures show how desperate people have become and could be pricing people out of healthcare. So I'm joined now by former NHS Trust Chairman Roy Lilley. Roy, thank you very much. So I want to start by asking you, what do you make of the numbers of patients that are turning to private healthcare?
I'm not in the least bit surprised. When NHS waiting lists go up, people using the private sector go up. And as NHS waiting times now have gone through the roof, the numbers will follow. And in fact, for private medical insurance, the numbers of people who bought private medical insurance since 2019 in February has doubled. So people are making their own provision.
Do you think that actually that's what needs to be happening ultimately? The people who can pay for it should perhaps consider paying for it, because then it will alleviate a lot of the pressure on the NHS, because actually if there's one thing you should really invest in, it's your own health.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing to say, isn't it? You know, we've got the NHS and it's there for all of us and it's free at the point of use and all the rest of it. But the fact is, I mean, you and I have had these conversations before. It's overwhelmed right now. It's still struggling with COVID. The numbers have gone up by another 17%. They got staff off with COVID. We're in the school holidays now because of these ludicrous rules. You have to take your holidays when the schools are on holiday. So nurses and doctors are just like everybody else with kids. Then we've got the capacity problem in the system, the ambulance problem in the system. And social care is pretty much on its knees. They've got 160,000 vacancies. So the hospitals are chock-a-block. So if you're trying to get on with doing what we call elective procedures, that's like the knees and the hips and all the rest of it, you've got to carve out that capacity. Now, the NHS is trying to set up surgical hubs to ring fence what they're doing for things like knees and hips and those kind of operations to keep them separate from the hospitals. But again, we've got huge problems with staffing. And there's tomorrow, I don't want to break the embargo, but there's a very important report come out from the Health Select Committee that's looking at the NHS numbers, and they are woeful.
Do you think that perhaps then it is that the NHS is trying to do too much? And obviously when it was set up all those years ago, there was no idea that it would end up being such a huge encompassing thing, and it's now time that we rethink the model.
Well, look, I mean, you can have insurance if you want to, or tax. You know, you take your tax out of your right-hand pocket or your insurance out of your left-hand pocket. It's still your trousers. We still have to pay for it. There are two things, really, that have happened. One, the NHS had flatline funding since the world banking crisis. It had 10 years of flatline funding, and that really knackered it. Now we've had COVID, and that's reduced it to its knees. What it needs is a period of leaving it alone politically, some guaranteed reasonable funding, 4% per annum for the next 5 years might do it, and just let them try and get their breath back, because at the moment they're just being hit from all directions.
Well, listen, Roy, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your view. That's Roy Lilley. He's a former NHS Trust Chairman.